miss seeing your faces. So glad you're here. Okay, so to start things off, looking at 1.02 roll call, and we'll change things up a little bit. Rochelle will do that for us tonight.
Okay, Sarah Kaiser.
I am here.
Awesome. Lydia DeFlorio.
I'm here.
Sylvia Gonzalez. No Sylvia yet. Tanya Hayes.
Yep, here.
Kelly Roper.
I am here as well.
Manny Magana.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Andrea Thompson.
I'm here.
Ashley Wade.
Present.
And Rabbi Benjamin Zober.
I am here.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you. So we have all but one member. That meets quorum. Thank you, Rochelle. So moving on to 1.03, action to adopt the agenda. We're looking for a motion.
Motion, Tanya? Or do I have to spell out the whole motion?
I'll do it.
Okay, yeah, if you have it in front of you, or you're supposed to say, in other meetings, we just say motion and then it's done, sorry.
I, Sarah Kaiser, move that the Share Advisory Committee adopts the agenda. That's what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, as presented.
I can second that.
Excellent. So on motion by Sarah and second by Tanya, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. And so that passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving forward with 2.01, looking at approval of the minutes from March 9th. That's how long it's been, y'all. Of our meeting for possible action. Do we have anything?
Do we discuss first or motion first?
If you have something to say, you could say it now. I think, oh, it's weird not having Neil next to me. I think you can say something if you had something to say about it, and otherwise we'll look for a motion.
And this is Sarah Montalvo. And also, Luis, will you just let us know if we have any public comments on any of the action items during the meeting? So that way that it is sent to all the committee members before you take action on an item.
Will do. Currently, no public comment.
Okay.
Sarah,
Thank you for the reminder.
Just introduce yourself really quickly.
Sarah Montalvo, who is the General Counsel for Washoe County School District.
Thank you.
So I was just going to mention that my name was misspelled throughout. I don't really care, but if we want to be official, I suppose Tanja.
Okay.
I don't know who the other Tanya is, but.
Anything else? I'd be ready to entertain a motion.
I noticed actually also that when there was a public comment, Jeff Church making a public comment, the sentence just got cut off before it was finished. So I'm not sure what it was supposed to say.
It looks like it said he expressed concern over what he felt the lack of information put out from and then you're right, we don't see anything.
Okay. I recall him talking about the district. I'd be fine to amend it to just say WCSD.
Yeah.
Okay. We're looking at page 2 of the, is that correct? You're looking at page 2 of the
yes
minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I have to scroll all the way up. Oh boy. Okay. Tanya, would you like to make that motion for us since it's your name and your observation?
The motion to, well, let's see. I
approve the minutes. Mm-hmm. So it's 2.01.
Thank you so much. I forgot how it all works. Okay, so
you want me to do it?
Yes, please. I'm trying to
Okay.
find my way. Oh, yeah.
I, Kelly Roper, move that we accept the minutes from the March 9th meeting with corrections for the spelling of Tanya's name to T-A-N-J-A throughout, and the public comment by John Church to finish with Washoe County School District.
Jeff Church.
Oh, Jeff Church. I apologize. Jeff Church.
Thank you, Kelly.
Second that motion.
Thank you, Manny. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? So on motion from Kelly Roper and second from Tanya Hayes, the agenda from March 9th is approved. Or the minutes from March 9th is approved. Great.
Okay.
Ashley, that was second from me, from Tanya, just so you know.
Sorry. Oh, it was from you.
No,
I looked right at you and said Tanya. I was thinking how she spells it.
no, at all.
Okay. Are we good on that when we say the second was Manny?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Moving on to 2.02. Presentation and discussion of the proposed share fourth grade curriculum video library and so this is a two-step to move existing share videos from fourth grade and then to replace them possibly with the 3 videos that were linked to us in the agenda.
Okay, and since this isn't a normal lesson, I don't have anything technically to walk through, our normal verbatim page by page. I just broke it down into the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade level. And the reason being is age of some of those DVDs that we were sharing and the lack of those DVDs as far as getting them to school sites. And some of our new schools and our revitalized schools do not have DVD players anymore, so they can't access them. And on top of that, even most importantly, is the access for our family members, for our community to actually be able to click on links to see the videos that we're sharing. I have in the past checked out some of the videos to families when they come or I send them to schools. Because, we need to be transparent with this. And it always is kind of odd when I'm like, well, you can see everything but the videos. Kind of put some red flags up. So that being said, these don't, I just want to preface it too, these don't necessarily will remain as we're updating the curriculum. These are more of like a Band-Aid to get us through as we are updating the curriculum. So there you have some background on it. And Ashley, you can lead the discussion on that from there.
Okay. I have a question about that then. So it would be the intent to use these videos for this school year, given the current circumstances with COVID and whatnot, until this committee were to make a different decision.
Until this committee makes a different decision or we are successful in updating our 6th and 5th and 4th curriculum, lessons and supporting videos to go with it.
Excellent, thank you. Is there any discussion on the 4th grade videos? Kelly?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really liked them. I liked that they had kids that looked like they were the 4th grade age, and then spread throughout back and forth the way they had the age, and then they had the animation. And then one of the things that really struck me that I liked was towards the end of the girl video and towards the end of the boy video, when they said, like if for the boys, well, what if I live with my mom? And then, they were like, well, clearly she will not have gone through what you're going through, but she might surprise you. And then the boy saying, or the girl saying, but what if I live with my dad? And so I really liked that it was encouraging the cross parent talk as opposed to leaving people feeling like if they're in a single parent home, well, what do I do? I really liked that a lot.
Thank you for bringing that up. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Any other discussion on the 4th grade videos?
I'm just curious.
I'd like
Okay, we're going to do Manny, Lydia, and then Tanya.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to be at that we can potentially stop the video at video 1 at 14:20, and video 2 at 16:20, and video 3 at 4:30. That way, it cuts out some advertisement that's at the end of it.
Okay.
And then so I'd like to be in to they can also talk to school council, their supporters, and their professionals if they need somebody.
So Manny, you're cutting out really badly. So let me just, I'm going to ask you first to put the times for each video in the chat to the hosts that you just said, so that we have a clear picture of what you're talking about. And then I just want to try rephrasing what you said, Manny, that you would like it to, you would want it explicitly told the instructors to say, you know, and if you have further questions about this, you can talk to your school counselor or a healthcare professional.
Yes, that's correct. That you know that they have people available.
Thank you. And then if you put those notes, time notes in the chat box to the hosts, then we'll be able to discuss the exact details that you were saying there. Okay, and Lydia?
I was just curious for Rochelle. 4th grade still, because we haven't touched it, it still has boy day and girl day, right?
Correct.
So is this the video that the boys watch and the girls, like, or would they see them both potentially, or where are we at that?
There's a boy video and then there's a girl video. Same distributor, same basic storyline, but it's very similar kind of to what we're doing right now with our old DVDs as far as how the little video is outlined or laid out. But yeah, we still have currently, again, this is just to suffice our current curriculum. We still have a boy day and a girl day for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade.
That's all I was wondering, is if potentially while we have this Band-Aid, if everybody would see both of these videos, or if this is intended to replace kind of what happens on Boy Day and Girl Day and the video stuff. That's all I'm just curious. I don't know that it affects my vote.
I think that's a really great question. Thank you for asking that, Lydia. Tanya?
Okay, I liked overall how all of these videos, there was a lot of just inclusiveness and all different types of people and kids and stuff represented. And I always try to look out for that. So I know Rochelle does that too. So I think they were really great. There was just one little thing on the Always Changing and Growing Up Girls video at 5 minutes, 40 seconds, around there. It mentioned regarding hygiene that washing your hair every day or every other day is best for most hair types. And even though it says most hair types, so I guess technically we are right, there are people with hair that should not be washed that often. So if you're a little Black girl sitting in one of these classes, maybe then you feel like you're different and you feel othered. Or if people around you start talking and then you realize like, wait, I don't wash my hair that often because she's not supposed to, and that's not what you do, then it could potentially feel othering. And so I don't know if maybe some sort of comment could be made at the end, or if like a little extra thing could be added just to say like about that, just so that we don't have like the one kid here and the one kid there that just feel like, oh, I don't fit into what's being said or something.
Right. I think that could work, Tanya. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's great input. I know when I'm teaching, you know, when I go into, or last year when I went into the school sites to teach it, we did, you know, and I can only speak for myself, right? We talked about things that the elements that they talked about in the videos, you know, like, oh, they talked about deodorant. Yeah, that's something you're going to have to talk to your caregiver or your parent about. Something you know what I mean? Those basic things, because there's a lot of assumptions that our kids know things that they don't necessarily know, or just like the hair, right? For most kids, you wash every day or every other day. That we notate that, you know what, not necessarily for all of our hair types, you know, so.
Yeah, just to make kids feel represented and included, and like they're not weird or something, especially when you're in fourth grade. Everybody's worried about feeling weird. So just if there could be some, and I know this is part of like kind of a lesson, so maybe if there was some sort of added little slide at the end, just even mentioning it, or if the teacher could talk about it, maybe they're not experts at that either, but just to have mentioned it at least so that everybody feels like they were represented in the lesson.
So a talking point with the videos kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
If I could jump in real quick, this is Sarah Montalvo, General Counsel for the school district. I just want to make sure we stick on agenda because we cannot be adding any slides to lessons or things like that because that is not on the agenda. Talking point may be different, but no adding of lessons for this current agenda item.
Thank you.
Could I ask for a clarification on that, Sarah?
And then Kelly.
Sure.
Just to make sure, so what Tanya was saying is would be considered more of a talking point. So it's okay if we advise those, but not in actual slides or lessons, correct?
Correct. We don't want to be adding any additions to lesson plans that haven't been noticed, but if it's just a recommendation for a talking point, that would be, in my opinion, still related to the video.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kelly?
Okay, Kelly Roper for the record. Rochelle, I have a question. It goes towards 6th grade, but somebody spoke on this for this agenda item. I think Lydia, when we were talking about a boy day and a girl day. It's my understanding that on that boy and girl day, and it doesn't matter for 4th grade, but the boys watch the video for the boys and the girls, but alone, and the girls watch the videos for the boys and the girls, but alone, or are they only watching their gender?
So no, that Kelly, thank you for asking, because when Lydia asked that, I'm like, oh, are we talking about all videos? But yes, 6th grade, it's the same. They're seeing the same video, but there'll be the boy group technically and the girl group.
And in 4th grade, we're looking at the 4th grade videos. The girl video, for example, would be withheld from my son, right?
Mm-hmm. At 4 right now.
Right.
Wait a minute. That's what I was asking. So Ashley's son would only watch the boy video in the boy group and the girls would watch the girl video in the girl group? They don't watch both sexes video?
Sarah said we're not just so 4th graders.
Rochelle, I think you're breaking up. I can't understand unless I'm breaking up.
No,
I
think
can't hear
that was
anything
Rochelle.
either. And Rochelle is frozen midair.
Manny, can you speak to that as a counselor in elementary school?
Yeah, so when we teach that, the boys and girls, first off, they are separated and split up. When we do have separate video for boys and girls, the boys will watch that one video, the girls will watch the other video. Obviously, it does address a little bit from both sexes, so that this way the boys are aware of what is going on with the girls, and the girls are aware of what is going on with the boys. So it's not a complete mystery, but they are not watching each other's videos when there's 2 separate videos.
Okay.
Thank you, Manny. Welcome back, Rochelle.
I don't know what happened. I just told everybody to get off whatever Wi-Fi device they're on, and I think they're eating dinner, so I don't think anybody's on. That's disturbing.
Mine does that sometimes in my neighborhood. It just kind of gets bogged down. Manny did answer that question, though.
Oh, okay.
We weren't able to hear from you. Andrea?
Yeah.
And then
Hi,
Sarah.
Ashley. Hi, guys. Andrea Thompson. So I think content-wise, I think they're great videos. My only concern was really they are kind of lengthy for a 4th grader. Not that it's not all good content, and I think it should all be played. But I don't think that's a reason to replace it with other content. I just think that it'll be something to think about for you as a talking point when you're thinking about lessons, of maybe breaking it up into smaller parts, pausing, stopping, that kind of thing, because, 20 plus 18 minutes, 16 minutes or so can be hard for a kiddo to actually get all that content, but it's really good content. So maybe think about that as you look at the lesson plans moving it forward. But content-wise, I thought it was great.
Okay.
Andrea, just to add to that, I can tell you from teaching them, this is one of the few days that they are all pretty much 100% attention nonstop, just big eyes, like no matter what, they're catching on to everything. And most counselors will, or whoever's teaching it, will stop and briefly check in and ask questions for clarification, make sure they're understanding it. But I do think we should probably add that just so that they know to do so.
That's good information. Thank you for teaching our fourth graders.
Anytime.
Thank you. Sarah and then Kelly.
Yeah, I just wanted to also reinforce, thank you. I thought the content on these videos is engaging and it's accurate, and I like it a lot. I'm not sure that it's in our scope, and Sarah can correct me if I'm wrong, to talk about whether boys or girls can watch each other's on those days, but that might be something we want to consider as we move forward to actually revising this curriculum when that day comes.
Exactly.
Totally. Thank you, Sarah. Yes. Kelly?
Okay, so Andrea, I was thinking if we were trying to cut some minutes, kind of when I was watching it myself, Manny, you already wanted to cut off the end because it was advertisements, but that hangman, while it was kind of trying to set the scene and be cute to get the word puberty, if we wanted to shave time off, I would say that was a good 2 minutes worth of just, but I don't know where the minutes were. If you wanted to cut that off, you lose absolutely nothing from the video.
So Kelly, could that be something again, like a teaching point if you are short on time, or if, you could start at this point in the video and, avoid the first 2 minutes of a hangman game, just kind of depending on the class and the counselor, right? Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. Any other discussion, or are we ready for a motion?
Just thinking about that, Kelly, I just kind of knowing how the kids respond to this a lot, I think that that cute little kind of innocent kind of segue into it might actually be good for them, because a lot of the kids are really nervous about the boy day, girl day to begin with. And so something like that to maybe make them feel a little bit more at ease might be beneficial to keep into it. Not to like cut you short on that, just thinking about my experiences that I've seen with them.
Excellent.
Wonderful. All right, well, I'm ready for a motion. We have,
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
I asked a question about the motions first.
Yes.
Are we moving? We're looking at videos we were just talking about fourth grade, but we've kind of extended ourselves into each. Do we need motions for each of these libraries?
Yes.
I think we do, right?
Yes, we do. Okay, so we're looking at fourth grade with the 3 possible videos and possibly the times, ending them actually at the times that we have. So maybe I'll make a motion. Oh, you guys, it's been so long. I, Ashley Wade, would move that we, the Share Advisory Committee, recommend to the Board of Trustees that we remove the current videos from the curriculum and replace them with the 3 videos outlined: Always Changing and Growing for boys, Always Changing and Growing Up for girls, and Making Tough Choices with Kid President, with the stipulation that the teachers end the first video at 14 minutes 20 seconds, the second video at 16 minutes 20 seconds, and the third video at 4 minutes 30 seconds, in an effort to remove advertising from the classroom. Okay, do we have a second?
Hold just 1 second. Point of clarification, Sarah Montalvo. You for curriculum, you didn't specify which grade. Are you
fourth grade?
Like fourth grade. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And did you want to add the talking point in your motion, or should I make a friendly amendment about that? The talking point about the hair. Sorry, procedural question.
Let's get a second, and then you can make that friendly amendment.
I, Kelly Roper, second.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. And then Tanya.
So I would like to make a friendly amendment that we also add a talking point after the Always Changing and Growing Up girls, to mention or discuss the fact that different types of hair might need to be washed at different frequencies, and it's okay no matter how you do it, as long as you don't smell. No, I'm kidding about that last part. Sorry, I shouldn't, not kidding in official settings.
I think the smell comes in later video. Thank you. I accept that friendly amendment.
Kelly Roper, I also accept that amendment.
Thank you, Kelly.
Would we be able to also add another friendly amendment to remind at the end of each of these videos to remind students that their counseling team is also somebody that they can go to within the school, because it's never mentioned in there really.
Okay, I would accept that.
Kelly Roper, I will accept it as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? Wonderful. Motion, oh boy, motion by me, seconded by Kelly Roper with friendly amendments from Tanya Hayes and Manny Magana, passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. And then we're going to move on. We're just going to keep going tonight. That was 2.2. Looking at 2.3 for presentation and discussion of the 5th grade share curriculum videos. The same idea of replacing what's currently from the current curriculum with these videos that were linked in the agenda. And Rochelle's kind of already prefaced all of them. Manny, you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I just looked at all the videos, and I guess I got a couple stopping points if everybody's okay with that also, just to, again, try to cut off some of the advertisement and stuff that's not needed. On video 1 at 4 minutes, 34 seconds. On video 2, 3 minutes, 55 seconds. On video 3, 4 minutes, 45 seconds. And on video 4, 22 minutes, 7 seconds. So 22 minutes, 5 seconds, make it easy.
Okay, can you send those to me in the text or John?
Yes,
Kelly?
I will.
Hi, okay, Kelly Roper for the record. Since I really like the 4th grade videos and I like most of the other videos, I have to just say I was not a fan of these ones. I liked the content for 5th grade, but the narrator just drove me up the wall. I didn't like her tones, the way she made it look. I just, like, the content was great, but if it were permanent, I would ask Rochelle to find something better, although I know you work so hard to find such good stuff. If it's temporary and everyone else likes it, I'm not going to be the wet blanket, but I didn't love them. And then I have to be honest, Bill Nye the Science Guy, I thought that was a total waste of share time because it reminded me of everything we've just been learning about germs and hand washing, and it didn't really seem share oriented. And when it finally at 14 minutes got to HIV and AIDS for like a minute, I kind of felt like it was inaccurate. It was, you know, I looked up season 3 and it was from 1995. And I know that there's still no cure for HIV AIDS, but there is medicine that is wasn't available in 1995. And so I just don't feel like that's a good use of our time. So I personally don't think we should put Bill Nye in there. And I would do the other 3 videos if it were a temporary Band-Aid, but I would not like them permanently in our 5th grade curriculum. That's just my personal thought.
Thank you for that. Maybe, does someone else have thoughts on that particular video, the Bill Nye video?
I'll go if nobody else is. I do actually agree with you for the most part on this, Kelly. It is a little outdated, but just looking at it and then comparing it to what they go more in depth with the 6th grade video, I think it's a good and decent general introductory video to the topic, which will kind of, again, just thinking about their about where the students are developmentally, it'll allow them more to kind of feel comfortable talking about some of that stuff. Whereas the 6th grade video, it goes a lot more in depth into what HIV and AIDS are. But I mean, I'm not opposed to that if we're able to find something else better to replace it though. But if that's all we got, I'm okay with that idea of it though.
my older son was in 5th grade last year. And so without diving into possible, without discussing changes to the curriculum, because that's not what we're talking about, I think the curriculum does need some support from some kind of a video. And so until the rest of it is, the lesson plans have been changed. I definitely understand what you're saying, Kelly. Like, as I was watching it, I was like, oh my, this, but I think it does support with the rest of the rest of it that the teachers are going to need to be doing.
Ashley, can you clarify? This is Andrea Thompson. Are you saying that what the current content would be better supported by a video that covers this topic? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think it would be better supported by a video. Yeah.
Okay. Can I add just a couple more comments too? Andrea Thompson. So I do understand a bit what you're saying, Kelly, about the narrator of the puberty videos. Not that, I mean, it's great content, but I kind of would want to hear from those who are teaching. And maybe I wish we had maybe more public comment. I don't have a 7th or a 4th, 5th, or 6th grader, but it is kind of how they talk to each other, and from what I've seen developmentally. So while we might think like, oh my gosh, this narrator is driving me a little bit insane, that could be because 5th graders might too. And so I think that perhaps that, even though, I mean, I do think it's good content there for, like hygiene and, stuff that they're concerned with, acne. And so even though the moderator may be, I agree with you. It almost felt like, I mean, is she yelling at me? But I do think that like the young kids are sometimes yelling anyway. So I think that maybe Manny can comment on that too, or Ashley, about, young people. I think they would still be receptive to the content the way that it's presented. So that's my 2 cents.
Just a little bit of background. I don't know if any of you have seen the videos that we're replacing or proposing Dr. D's Birds and Bees. It's an animated talking capital D that walks with kids and talks about, the bridge of, yeah. So again, I know these videos aren't perfect, and I'm not trying to sway you guys anyway. I'm just like, the Dr. D's, I can't stomach showing those myself. So
just to respond to that, Andrea Thompson here. And I agree. I mean, I do think the way that it's animated, the way that it is very simple in that way, developmentally for their age, is probably most appropriate. Then, obviously if we were watching on the topic, we're like, okay, why are you yelling at me, the narrator? But I think for their developmental age, I think it's appropriate.
I can agree with Rochelle. Having taught it, it's hard to watch the Dr. D's Birds and Bees. Like, it is extremely hard. And I mean, like, the important stuff, sometimes I even feel like they make it kind of known, but the important stuff is also somewhat like gone through like that in the old videos. And these videos, like, I mean, I agree with you, Kelly. The narrator may not be the best one with it, but it's a lot more informative, and it's going to catch their attention a lot sooner. And like, it's going to be a lot quicker than what that Dr. D's one is. Is this the one that mentions the dragon breath in there? Because that was probably my favorite thing that I remember hearing, was the dragon breath. Like, that's going to catch their attention and be like, oh man, I don't want to be a dragon out here. Like, that's something that the kids will relate to. Like the Dr. D's stuff. I mean, I had kids tell me that, like, this is whack. Literally, they said this is whack. And I'm like, it's what we got, guys. So.
Kelly?
Kelly Roper, for the record. It was the 4th grade, because I think Crest was part of that advertisement there. But but I totally agree with you that it needs updating. And I love it if it's a Band-Aid. I guess like the 4th grade one, I loved so much that I would love to see it in the curriculum when you show us the curriculum down the road. I really liked it. So I guess I was just meaning, yes, if this is a Band-Aid, perhaps down the road for the actual curriculum, if we could find something, because I would hate for it to be, I know we're going to be updating these along the way. I would just hate for something permanent to be something that people make fun of in 2 or 3 years. But I think you're right. It totally is a good update Band-Aid.
That's a good point. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion or a motion for the 5th grade curriculum?
Ashley, this is Sarah Montalvo. I know I already asked Luis to let us know if there's public comment, but I think it would be good practice to check in with him for a motion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Luis, is there any public comment on item 2.3?
No public comment at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for that reminder. Okay, do we have a motion?
I have a question first. Because Sarah, I thought of that and then already forgot, so I'm glad you said something. Should we ask Louise and make sure there wasn't public comment for the one that already passed? Just for the record?
Just for the record, let's just make sure. Luis?
For item 2.02, was there any public comment for 2.02?
No.
Okay. Thank you for checking on that, Kelly. Okay.
I will attempt the motion then, if everybody's okay with that. Let's see if I got this right. Manuel Magana, motion to approve the 4 proposed videos for 5th grade shared curriculum to replace the current videos that we have with the note that video 1 is stopped at 4:34, video 2 stopped at 3:55. Video 2 stopped at 3:55, video 3 stopped at 4:45, and video 4 stopped at 22:05. Did I do that right?
I think so.
Aren't there 5 videos?
There are 5.
There were 5 on this one? Did I?
Yeah.
There was the kid president.
The kid president.
Oh man, I think I might have missed one possibly then. So I'd like you to just forget those video times then, because apparently I missed watching one.
Okay, would you like? I'm not sure if he needs to withdraw that motion or just say, never mind, we just want the video.
I just want the videos.
Why don't you withdraw your previous motion? And then if you want to do another new motion, you can do that.
Okay. Oh, that's what it was. I missed the talk. Okay. I would like to withdraw my previous motion and I would like to propose a new motion. Am I doing that right so far, Sarah?
Yes, you're great.
Okay. And I would like to propose that for the 5th grade shared curriculum, we remove the current videos in there and we replace them with the 5 videos that have been proposed, which is puberty in boys, puberty in girls, inside puberty, what are the stages of puberty, Bill Nye germs, and a pep talk from Kid President as our videos to be shared.
Thank you. And a second?
Hi, Sarah Kaiser, second that motion.
Thank you. Thank you. And one last check. Oh, yes, Kelly.
Can I make a friendly amendment that this is temporary until it's updated, especially because of especially the HIV video? Is that an amendment that I can make sure we clarify that it's temporary? Or does that necessary because we had it in discussion?
I'm looking to Rochelle and Sarah.
Oh,
I don't think it's a necessary clarification since if these, well, first Rochelle explained it initially during discussion, and also you can always update curriculum, which is she prefaced it with, these are there until the curriculum will be updated.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for checking on that, Kelly. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so on motion by Manny Magana and second by Sarah Linda, is it Seibert or Seibert? I should have listened. Sorry, Kaiser. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, and moving on to, you guys are so great. We're going to get this done. Okay, and also we have good discussion. So moving on to 2.04 for discussion of the proposed it looks like 2 proposed changes to 6th grade.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Manny. I was just going to say,
sorry, you go.
just to reiterate what we talked about a few minutes ago, that it is the same video for the boy day and the girl day. They're both groups are going to see the same video. Does that clarify enough? It's not a different video for either. It's the same, but just because of the way the current curriculum is set up, and we're not changing that at this point. I mean, today, right? We just continue on with that format.
Thank you for that clarification. Kelly, you have a question?
On her point only, because there is one, I love this video. When it got to 10 minutes and 50 seconds, when it was part of the video where they were talking about this is what girls deal with that boys don't, and boys deal with other things. And it was talking about the vaginal discharge, and it went into, it's clear, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's smelly, maybe it's discolored, maybe it looks like cottage cheese. And I was mortified. Like, I was thinking about my girls, I was thinking about my nieces, and I was thinking, oh my God, what if I wanted to make sure that since this was middle school, the 6th grade boys and girls, I wanted to know if they were still separated. But then I wondered, were the boys watching, are the boys watching that video too? Because then it talks about, so I guess part of me wondered if that was just like the girls are going to be like, oh my God, the boys are listening to this, and then feeling super awkward, because that's already awkward. I'm glad it normalizes it. I'm glad it takes the shame away. But I just wanted to know if that was super uncomfortable for girls to hear the boy part and the boys to hear that aspect of the girl part, like the wet dream part.
Manny.
I can speak to that a little bit for you. Having taught the 6th grade curriculum last year, as much as I know that it might be awkward, I think it is really important that both sides do know that. I know that I had a couple incidents last year where a few girls came to me because I was the only one available at the time, and were really nervous and scared to tell me about how they started their period. And so I even also had some of their friends come and tell me about some of these things that they were worried about. And I think it's just to kind of hit to that point, it's important that both girls and boys know about it, so that this way there's no real judgment should anything like that happen. I know personally, when I was in school, a girl ended up having her period, and I wasn't as informed as of what was going on, and was like, oh my God, what's that? And so I'd rather a girl not have to go through something like that. I mean, if there is vaginal discharge and it looks like it'll come kind of looking like it's that they peed their pants a little bit, like it's something that we can easily just normalize for them. Like, okay, let's get you a pair of pants. No worries about it. Likewise with boys, since they're starting to get erections and stuff, like it's not something that we want the girls to be like, oh my God, what is that? Because speaking personally as a boy, that's one of the biggest fears sometimes, is you're asked to come up in front of the class, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, I can't get up right now. I need to, I'm gonna stay here. And then you get yourself in trouble because you're embarrassed. Like, I think it's really good that they know all about that, because that's the age when they're really starting to notice those things also. So it'll just create it. It'll be, what was the word you used, Kelly? More accepting?
Normalizing, or take away the shame.
There we go. Yeah, it'll normalize it more, and it'll take away that shame if they're able to actually understand and know what's going on with each other. That way it also can allow a good, healthy conversation should one need to happen, rather than a conversation that is going to probably be inappropriate, used offensively, and not going to make anybody feel good.
Okay, that's an excellent answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I add something?
Yes, Andrea.
Sorry, Andrea Thompson. So to provide some reassurance to you, Kelly, cottage cheese like discharge is something that I would use in practice almost every day for a term. It's a way that we would describe it in the medical form of ways so that people would know what we were talking about, whether it's to our patient or when we're documenting something. So yes, as mortifying as it may sound, it's actually one of the more common abnormal types of vaginal discharge, right? So usually for like a vaginal yeast infection. So I think it's great content to have. And it's also using language that they may even hear in my clinic, because we would even ask, what does it look like? Is it clear? Is it white? Is it yellow? Does it look like cottage cheese? And it's something that we can all, we all know what cottage cheese looks like. So, so just from a health standpoint, I think it is definitely good content and something that they could even hear in a clinic. So.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification from both of you on that.
Yeah. Welcome to clinic day.
Welcome to 6th grade share.
Again, I say thank you to all of you for wading into this. This is excellent. Any other comments before we have any motions?
I'd also just maybe make the comment again, if we want to kind of cut down on the advertisements. I saw it 14:45. We could probably cut it off there unless we want them to know about the website. I didn't have time to fully browse and look at the website that they recommended. So if we cut it off at that point, it gets rid of them recommending that website also. So just a suggestion.
Which video are you referring to?
Video 1. Oh yeah, sorry, I was just looking at video 1. And video 2 I thought was absolutely great. I thought it was very informative. I mean, there was really nothing I didn't like about that one, and there was no point from where I thought that we should probably cut it off at all, at least in video 2.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Kelly?
I absolutely loved this AIDS video. Like, I absolutely loved it. So like what I was saying, I didn't so much love in the 5th grade one. This I thought was spectacular. Manny, I almost, like I wrote down numbers for the video on puberty, that it was where it ended, so that website didn't get put on there initially, because I remember that one website where I specifically wanted it ended because I thought it was inappropriate. But I did look at that website, and if other people didn't, I don't want to necessarily make it go in, but there was a lot of really good questions, age appropriate. I don't think that there was anything controversial that a lot of people might say, well, I wish this wasn't a website my child had access to, but I'm not going to be the only one to vouch for it. So I think it was at like 15 or 14 minutes and 50 seconds if we cut it off. But it's not a terrible website. But if we're not advertising them to go look at websites, then yeah, we could vote to cut it off.
What was the website name again, Kelly?
It was, I knew you were going to ask that.
Kidshealth.org.
Kidshealth.org.
And if I can add Benjamin Zober for the record, I think that if this is a resource that we are giving them and we're trusting them with the videos, putting something at the end that has a website, I think if they've tuned out, they've tuned out. If they're still engaged, they see that, and that is a resource they can go to review content on their own. There are things for parents. So I don't know that there's any real downside to it being there. I think it just gives them another credible resource that they can look to on their own, rather than going to their friends who are just as uninformed as them, or not saying anything because they're not yet comfortable to ask an adult.
Okay. So I just looked at it after you had said that, Rabbi, and I agree with you. I think that this is something that we could definitely keep in there. It does have a lot of, just quick glance, it has a lot of great information for parents, kids, teenagers, and even educators themselves. So I'm with you on that, Rabbi Ben.
Okay. And what was the time that you wanted to cut off the advertisements?
I do believe it'd be what Kelly recommended then at 14:50. That would get the website in there, and then it would get rid of the other advertisements and stuff in there. And it would also get rid of, I think it's the outtakes on this one. I can't remember.
Yeah, there were outtakes, I think.
Which
Luis, is there any public comment for this 2.04?
No public comment.
Thank you, sir. Okay, do we have a motion for this?
I'll do the motion again then.
Thank you.
I, Manuel Magana, motion that we remove the existing 6th grade shared curriculum videos and replace them with the 2 videos that were proposed to us, which are sex education for MS puberty. I do believe that's middle school puberty, and then understanding HIV AIDS, learning the facts, fight the stigma, stay safe. With the advisement that the first video be cuts off at 14:50.
Thank you. And I'll second that. All right. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? And so the Tanya?
I'm so sorry. I was trying to find that cutoff. So procedurally, I'm not sure where I am right now, but I'm just going to say 1450 doesn't show the website yet. So.
Oh, well, okay. So it's passed unanimously as motioned by Manny and seconded by me. And Tanya, if you wanted to take the time to make a second motion, is that how that would work, Sarah?
Yeah, you would just have to do an amendment to that, make a motion to amend that previously approved vote with the new time.
Okay, let me see here what the time seems to be.
While you're looking, I just want to say how much I appreciate that everyone came prepared and had like their notes of things they wanted to talk about. And I've really enjoyed working with you all.
Agreed.
Okay, so I, Tanya Hayes, would like to make an amendment to the motion that we just passed, that we cut off the video, sex education for middle school video to puberty at 14:57, so as to include the website kidshealth.org.
I second that amendment.
Yeah, it's a motion to amend the yeah. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then any opposed? Okay, and so we, on motion from Tanya Hayes and seconded by Manny Magana, we have moved that cutoff time to 14:57. Well done, everyone.
Nice.
Okay, so moving on to 2.05, we're going to be discussing, so I want to make sure, yeah, we're just talking the same video situation for 7th grade now, replacing the previous.
No, it's a whole lesson.
It's a whole lesson.
Oh, okay. I thought so. Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, what did I do wrong?
Okay, right. Yeah. Okay, good. So 2.05, presentation and discussion from the proposed share 7th grade curriculum to include lesson plans and accompanying PowerPoint and videos.
Uh-oh.
And this is the one that we already reviewed. We're just looking at it with the revisions that we proposed, correct?
No, Manny, this is brand new 7th grade.
Okay. All right.
When we finished in March, we finished up 8th grade. And then it went to the board and it was approved and all sorts of great things. So now we're rolling into 7th grade and fingers crossed we'll get 6th grade this year too. Woohoo.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. And what I'm using the packet that you all received from me, and we'll just kind of scroll through the lesson like normal. Okay. Ta-da. Can you all see it?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yay. I never know, right? So just following along with what we've done in the past and not numbering lessons per se, and giving the teachers that autonomy of when they want to teach each lesson as far as it fits into their curriculum. I'm continuing with that. So it's just by lesson topic, abstinence, contraceptives, and STIs. Again, following the framework we had in 8th grade for the most part, because I remember you all having that discussion that we need to revisit and revisit and revisit per grade level. So, because eventually it will stick in, even though there are new lessons, it's not that we're not repeating the same lessons, but the themes are remaining somewhat the same. So objectives being define STIs, HIV, define abstinence, Name at least 3 common STIs and how they are transmitted. Compare sexual behaviors that put people at high, low, or no risk for STIs. Understand the basics of common birth control methods and their uses. Activities to support this, there is a video, there's 2 videos. What is an STI? The other video being birth control, the final frontier. And then some activities, can you figure out the STI? It's an activity. And then how risky is the behavior? Again, another activity. So, and then it gives teacher little tidbits along the line, you know, hang up the clues ahead of time so they know what to do. The lesson intro, I pulled from our previous lessons as well. Share is important for everyone in the class. The goal is for every one of you to feel that these classes relate to you in your life. The curriculum and resulting class discussions are intended to be respectful and inclusive of many perspectives and allow all students to see themselves and understand their own health and sexuality. The purpose of Share is to assist you in making informed choices and avoid behaviors that put you at risk. All questions are welcome. If you don't feel comfortable asking in class, I provide a paper for anonymous questions, or you may talk with me later. So from there, rolling in to the lesson. Again, the PowerPoint, I just embedded it in this lesson for ease for all of us. Starting off with what is an STI, the movie, and then moving into sexually transmitted infection, human HIV. STI refers to a disease a person can get from another person when they do something sexual with that person. You can only get an STI from someone who has an STI. And then HIV, when a person has HIV, they have a deficient immune system, meaning infections their body could usually fight off on its own are harder or impossible to fight off. So going into a sexually transmitted infection, basically what I just read off of the PowerPoint is that first little blurb on the bottom. And then you may hear STI, STD, or STI. Remember this being a really important talking point last year, used out in the world. The D refers to disease and the I to infection. There's a minor difference between the two, but for the purposes of this lesson, we'll be referring to STIs. We're also going to be talking about HIV, which stands for human immunodeficiency virus. The human part means only people can get it and transmit it to other people. While there are animal versions of HIV, a person cannot get HIV from a dog or a cat or any other animal or vice versa. Immunodeficiency is actually 2 words stuck together. You might know that our immune system is the system in our body that fights off infection. A deficiency is when something isn't working the way it should. So when a person has HIV, they have a deficient immune system, meaning infections their body could usually fight off on its own are harder or even impossible to fight off. So HIV is a virus that weakens the immune system that, if it's not successfully treated, can become AIDS. And this, a talking point tells students that there are many STIs, but that they tend to have at least a few things in common with other STIs. So they're going to be doing an activity where they're going to be assigned an STI and try to discover which one they have. And then, so this is the activity. Can you figure out the STI? As what we'll be doing, dividing the class into 9 groups, or again, that teacher autonomy of how you feel best works for your group, whether it's whole group, small group. Every class every year is different. So again, giving that freedom to the teachers because they know their students best. Say each small group will receive a worksheet with a list of clues on it. Around the room are clues with characteristics of different STDs. And here we go, my typo, putting STIs in instead of STD. Your job is to go around the room based on what's listed on those sheets, determine which is on your paper. At the bottom of your sheet is a word bank of different, which again should be STIs. When you find something that doesn't apply to you, just cross it off. By the end of the activity, you should be able to determine the STI, tell them that they'll have about 10 minutes in which to work on these and distribute the worksheet and ask them to get started. As students, and again, at the end of this lesson are the clues, right? That'll be posted around the room. As students finish, have the groups return to their seats, staying in their original work groups, go through the responses using the answer key, which is also toward the end of this lesson, or towards the end of this packet, well, this lesson in the packet. And one of the things all these STIs, again, have in common is that they can be transmitted through sexual behaviors. However, some behaviors put people at higher risk than others. We're going to do an activity now where we'll look at which behaviors carry a lot of risks and which put you at some risk or which have no risk for transmitting STIs again. Since students are already in their groups from the first activity, ask them to remain in those groups to follow up with this activity. Putting on the board high risk, low risk, no risk activity sheets. And then, so they're looking at the risk levels of certain behaviors. Some of the activities carry a high risk and transmitting STIs. Some carry a lower risk, some carry no risk. And then again, explaining that you'll be handing out examples of behaviors that'll be sorted into risk levels, those behaviors included in this lesson, passing out those behaviors to each group. Have students read each of them and decide as a group which behaviors would be considered a high risk, low, or no risk behavior. And as they're working, again, you can do this ahead of time. For the teachers, they can do it ahead of time, or as they're working, writing high risk, low risk, no risk, or if they're using an active board, they have it on there. Have groups take turns coming up to the board and attaching their group's behavior, one behavior at a time, to the board in the column the group decided the behavior fit under. Once all behaviors have been placed, review with students while asking for explanations of their thinking. Again, answer key is at the end of the packet. A key point about STIs and your risk for them is that one person has to have an STI in order to give it to someone else. None of these behaviors, including the high risk behaviors, can spontaneously create an STI. They are caused by bacteria, viruses, parasites, or bugs. This means that just as you can be exposed to them by someone who has one, you can take specific steps to lower or eliminate your chances of getting one. So again, kind of finishing off that activity as they're discussing why they chose each column for their behavior, moving into ways to lower your risk of contracting an STI, making sure abstinence and the consistent and correct use of birth control methods. Ask students to explain what they think consistent and correct use of birth means. I remember we talked about that in 8th grade. Clarify any misunderstandings. This is the same definition of abstinence that we've used in the past. So I don't think I need to review this piece with you all. Again, this is, since this will be the PowerPoint slide will be up for students. Teacher has their piece on the lesson. Important to note, when deciding to engage in sexual behaviors, it's imperative that it is consensual and that partners discuss their personal definition of abstinence. And then moving into contraceptives, the video birth control, the final frontier. And remember, there is always someone to talk to, parent or guardian. And I pretty much took this from our 8th grade, parent or guardian. So tell me if I messed up anywhere. Trusted adult, faith-based leader, teacher, school counselor, school nurse, health clinic, healthcare provider. And then the local resources, again, with that, please take a picture for future reference. So the Teen Health Mall, Northern Nevada Hopes, Planned Parenthood, Crisis Call Center, Suicide Prevention, LGBTQ plus friendly services. And then there is an exit ticket in order to be infected with an STI. Both partners must have an STI, true or false, and why. What is the only 100% effective way of preventing unplanned pregnancy and sexually transmitted STIs? And number 3, if you decide to engage in sexual activity, what is the most effective method for reducing the risk of an unplanned pregnancy and spreading STIs? And then this part goes through the clue worksheet. I don't think you need me to go through each of the clue worksheets with you all. You're okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for the discussion purpose, if we're okay with that. Okay.
Thank you, Rochelle. All right. So thoughts or comments or for discussion?
Okay, Kelly.
I'll start. I loved both of the videos in the lesson. I thought the lesson was really good. The one and only problem I have with this entire lesson is the low risk, no risk, high risk. I remember when this lesson was proposed for high school, we got a lot of public comment and people having a lot of problems with the chart of what was considered low risk and no risk. It was a slide that wasn't shared on the screen, but just the idea of like presenting the idea to them of like bathing together or, you know, mutual masturbation, like, or even spelling out like vaginal sex with a condom, anal sex with a condom, oral sex with the barrier at 7th grade. I think, I just don't think it's appropriate. So I like everything but that activity at all. I don't know how to change that activity. I didn't when it was in high school either. And it's not in high school, the lesson that we passed. So that's the only problem that I have with this lesson, because everything else I really like. And then the only other thing, there was a typo in the definition of abstinence. And it's abstinence is the only 100% effective way to prevent sexually transmitted HIV should probably be capitalized. So it grabs your attention.
Yeah, thanks, Kat.
Yeah, but yeah, that's just where I'm at.
Okay, thank you, Kelly, for bringing that up. Andrea?
Hi, Andrea Thompson here. Okay, so since just piggybacking off of what you were saying, Kelly, I think, and maybe Manny or somebody who teaches this content or I think that the low risk, high risk, perhaps there could be some language in there that it's really just spurring some discussion. So, I mean, some people may disagree on what they consider risky behavior, but it's still behaviors that people will engage in at this age. And so, that could be some way where it would be appropriate. I just think the way that she has it set up to like be in groups and, it's really just to spur discussion rather than saying there is a completely right or wrong answer, maybe, for that particular activity. So that's just sort of what I'm thinking on the fly. Because I mean, I do think content-wise, it's good content to have in there. And, we may not always 100% agree, but maybe we could just consider some language in there that this is really, to spur some discussion and get people to think of, because someone is really going to tell themselves, really engage themselves, what they think is a risky behavior versus not. I'm trying to toggle between screens, so bear with me if I look like I'm staring off into space. I did have just a couple small points before. Now, one question, and maybe you can answer this. This is for just 7th grade, right? Everybody is in the same classroom, no matter how they identify.
Correct.
Okay, good. And so I'm looking at right after slide 3, and when it's down below from the sexually transmitted infection, HIV slide, a sexually transmitted infection refers to a disease a person can get from another person when they do something sexual with that person. I thought that was quite vague language.
Okay.
And maybe too open to interpretation. Maybe we had something that was a little bit more specific, or, I get what we're trying to get from that little sentence, but maybe thinking about, it just seems very vague, something sexual. And then, let me see, I'm trying to toggle between screens. So I think that.
So Andrea, you're thinking that doing something sexual is very vague, correct? Yes. In that sentence?
Yeah, and so I think that's too vague and too open to interpretation from like a health standpoint.
Okay.
I mean, I know that, you know, and I think this is the first time in the curriculum where they really start talking a little bit more about, you know, what this really means about doing something sexual with with another human being. And so I think it would be better if it was more specific there.
I have I want to follow up about that. And my first thought is, this is the same lesson where they are discussing more specific activities. So I would be open to adjusting that phrasing somewhat, but also I feel like we don't need the laundry list because it's part of the whole lesson. But also I wanted to ask you, as a healthcare provider, do you ever have, because this would be generally at the end of 7th grade, do you ever have 8th graders who do have an STI?
Yes.
Do you ever treat them for that?
Yes, I've had patients and clients as young as 11, 12, even 10 years old with STIs, pregnancy. You know, so this is very appropriate content, and I think it's better to be less vague. I think at this developmental stage, things are, you know, open to too much interpretation, and it's actually best from a healthcare standpoint to be very specific. So, you know, and when we ask questions as healthcare providers, you know, I have to be extremely specific about what I'm asking because it's, again, open too much to interpretation. So I think that it's better to be less vague, and this is very appropriate content for this age group because we do see it in our clinic. Yeah.
Thank you. As a 7th grader, I had 2 friends who were pregnant, but that's like an anecdotal, right? So I appreciate you, your professional
And I can tell you from, you know, you can look, these are very easy statistics to pull up online. You know, lots of reporting agencies, including the Washoe County Health Department, the Center of Disease Control, will track, you know, these are reportable, STIs are considered reportable diseases. So when those occur in a clinic, it is something we tell the health department so that they can help to track and be sure that partners are hopefully treated. Because obviously if we don't treat all sexual partners, then we're going to kind of run rampant. And Nevada, unfortunately, ranks very high in most of the STDs in the country comparatively to other states. Believe last time we checked, we were #1 for syphilis rates, about 3 or 4 for gonorrhea and chlamydia. So certainly really important content even at this age group for sure.
Thank you. And so thinking about how we might make that more specific, I wonder, because this is at the beginning of the lesson, right? And then to introduce what risk of what, right? And then later in the lesson, the thought is look at specific behaviors. And so what do you think about, and anyone else on the committee, I don't mean, something like refers to doing something sexual with that person, which we will look at in a moment, or, you know, like something sexual as we'll discuss later because really I imagine, Rochelle, a point is, why would we discuss any behaviors, right? To tie it to this and other diseases, right? And so I would be open to linking them together a little more explicitly, but again, succinctly.
Can we say certain sexual behaviors, which we will get into? Because touching boobs is fine, but it's sexual. So it's like certain sexual behaviors or actions or whatever. Instead of some, just saying certain ones.
Yeah, we could, if we were going to look for specific wording, and we could potentially say, you know, refers to a disease a person can get from another person when they engage in some types of sexual activity. And then we could put a little disclosure next to it, you know, this is a topic we will discuss at a later time or something like that. Okay.
Or maybe it's already tied in for us in the activity for how risky is that behavior. We have, and I'm using 2 screens. So, you know, to link it explicitly, I mean, you know, it says some activities carry a higher risk for transmitting STIs. And so maybe, I mean, you know, it does loop around to very specific behaviors. Sarah, and then
does it do it in that, I mean, you've got it in front of you and I don't have 2 screens. Does it do it in that moment? Because I was thinking the same thing, that this is the moment to introduce that concept of risk, because that's where the lesson is going. And if it can be tied in this moment, that this concept of risk is coming, and we're going to talk more about that. So I don't know whether it does that in that moment.
So Sarah, I think I'm following you about all of your discussion. It's great. Are you thinking that we should perhaps move that section of the lesson to the before the risk behavior? So it's like a transition from what STI are you to this then goes into what risk is the behavior? Like it's a transitional point?
I don't know whether I'm saying that or not. That might be interesting. What I'm saying in this moment that Andrea was talking about, which is very early in the lesson, where there's this vagueness of sexual activity and STIs go together, I think that would be a moment to link the rest of the, I'm not saying move the lesson around necessarily, but add a statement in there that says, this is where this lesson is going. We are going to talk about the risks associated with various types of sexual activity. That's where I was going in that moment. I don't know about moving. I don't know.
Okay. Alrighty. Manny might have a thought on that.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Sorry, I was on mute. So kind of hearing what you guys were all saying and looking at what we what's defined as a high risk, low risk, and no risk. I was thinking maybe we look at it as STI refers to a disease a person can get from another person when they engage in some types of sexual contact. These types of contact include anything that involves the genitals, the anus, or the mouth, because that's typically, based on at least the other slide, what we're looking at, those are the ones that typically involve the high risk things. If you're engaging in oral sex, anal sex, or vaginal sex, those are high risk in any type, or low risk if you're engaging in any of those type also based on that. Does that sound kind of good to everybody else?
I feel like we don't even really, oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see nodding, and we'll do Tanya and then Lydia.
I was just going to say, I like your very specific sentence, Manny, but it almost feels like mouth doesn't need to be in there, because then you could technically think that anything you're doing with your mouth, but it's only when it's attached to those other parts that you mentioned. So we could just say genitals and anus. Those are the ones that need to be involved, right? Whether it's mouth or something else. Although then hand, yeah, they need to be connected for it to happen is, I guess what I'm saying.
See, I was also thinking mouth in that sense, because I mean, herpes is like that can be transferred through the mouth, like herpes also. That's why I was kind of including the sexual contact between that. That's kind of how I was looking at it.
Yeah, so the contact between is what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So it's not like necessarily mouth to mouth, but
no.
Between. I don't know if you had said that. I might have missed it.
Yeah, no. I mean, although you can spread herpes to somebody if you're making out with somebody that has it. So, I mean, actually, you know what? I mean, thinking about that, maybe it should kind of be kind of generalized as that way, because if we're looking at all the diseases that they're talking about, all those can be kind of spread in all those contacts. But I mean, I'm okay with interpretation and redefining that also, though.
Okay, I'd like to hear from Lydia.
I think we have to be really careful. This struck me when I was reading it, and it's striking me more through this discussion, that we have scabies on there, and scabies, yes, you can get it through sexual contact, but you can get that through non-sexual contact, and holding hands would be a high-risk behavior for scabies. So I remember as a child, me and my brother and sister all got it, and I guarantee there was no sexual behavior going on between the three of us, right? We lived in the same house. We sat on each other's beds, whatever. And I just, when I was reading through this and I was watching the video, and I thought, oh my God, I would have been mortified if when we were kids and that happened, if people thought, like, made assumption, or just what I thought about myself, like, oh my God, me and my brother and sister gave each other an STI. Like, it wasn't an STI. It was considered more of a like something you go to the dermatologist for, and you get a cream and whatever. And so while I'm okay with it being in the video, like, because you can't take it out, we didn't make that video, but leaving that one in there while we're talking about all this other stuff makes us not medically accurate for that. Because like I said, holding hands, high risk behavior. sitting too close together on the couch. Super high risk behavior for that one particular thing. And so I don't know if we remove scabies, if we add language to make sure they understand that this is something that can be transmitted sexually, but it can also, probably more often than not, is transmitted other ways. And so somehow we have to make it really clear that that's not what we're talking about. Otherwise, everything we're saying right now just doesn't hold.
I got a proposal. Lydia, I got a proposal to that then. What about if we looked at, after they defined the high risk, low risk, and no risk things, first off, if we move the kissing on the lips and the holding hands over to low risk, and we explained why it is, like what makes that a low risk, so that way they understand why it is. Because just like you said, scabies can be, somebody has it, you hold their hand, you run the potential of getting it, and so that makes it a low risk, I guess.
Would that be medically accurate?
Yeah.
I see you, Kelly. I see you.
Yeah. I can chime in. I do see what you're saying, Lydia. This is Andrea Thompson. I would say if we were seeing a client or patient in clinic, most often I would say we're treating scabies for something that it was not transmitted sexually. So you're sharing close contact with someone. It could be a roommate or a partner, and it's just sharing a couch even. So, I mean, I don't think that the young people in this scenario would be getting less content if you just removed scabies from the lesson plan. I think that they're still getting really great content. And I do agree that I think if a young person, because it is quite common, because, socioeconomically, it can be very difficult to get rid of if you don't have a washing machine in your home or, something like that. And most often clinically, it's not treated as a sexually transmitted disease. So I would say that you could probably just remove the content from there if you wanted to be, you could still be medically accurate then, and then also not mortify a young person that maybe has had scabies at one point.
Well, it's in the video, so they're going to get it. So at the very least, after the video, like if you removed it from the actual content, there needs to be a talking point after the video that says, the video talked about scabies. We are or we're not talking about it here, whatever we decide to, whichever way we go. But they need to be told that, yeah, you can get it. Yeah, sure, you can get it through sexual contact, but there's a whole bunch of any contact, and even not necessarily person to person. Like you said, it could be person to couch, person. But there's a lot of different ways to contact that.
Yeah.
Or to contract for that.
I'm really feeling pulled toward, and then we're going to Kelly. I'm really feeling pulled toward keeping slide 3 as it is, because it's really diseases spread through close contact. And they're living that in their daily lives right now. And this lesson is going to address specifically sexual behaviors because it's the SHARE program. That's kind of where my brain's at right now. Thank you, dear. And Kelly, I would love to hear what you have to say. And I feel like Rabbi Benjamin, I feel like we skipped over you. Didn't you have your hand up?
If you want Rabbi Benjamin first and then me, that's fine.
You're muted.
There was and I don't remember which of the videos it was in, but there was one that had a very nice slide or image that kind of spelled out sex as opposed to just sexual behavior. It said genital anus, genital mouth, and so on and so forth. So I don't remember if it was this one or which I watched all the videos today, so they're blurring together. That lays it out well, although as Manny excellently pointed out, herpes is in a different category because it can be spread through kissing. And I'm not sure how we kind of reconcile those as we're laying this out, if we're trying to provide just kind of a broad a salvo of this is what we are talking about in this space.
Thank you for bringing that up. Kelly?
Hi. Okay, Kelly Roper for the record. So I'm totally, I think it's part of the reason why high risk, low risk, no risk has so many holes in it, like as an activity, because I certainly don't want to be like taking kissing off the low, the no risk. That's great. Although, like if you're kissing somebody that is currently has an outbreak, like other people have talked about, it isn't no risk. I guess that's the problem I have with poking holes in this. But at the risk of being a solo no vote on this entire lesson because I don't like this activity, I wanted to float an idea of a compromise, not a compromise, but I think the two biggest no risk behaviors that I have a problem with, and I had a problem with it when it got put before the committee before. And since I was, Ashley, you were still on the board, I was just attending as a public comment person. And I don't remember if it was then or if it was at the very beginning of when I was doing share. But I really, really do not like bathing and mutual masturbation. Like, I just don't like the seed planting, like you two 7th graders can get in a bathtub naked together, and that is going to be no risk. Like, I don't see it ending there, like I don't see it ending there with no risk involved. Two people are getting naked in a bathtub. And then as a parent, I'm going to get extremely offended that the share committee and the teacher at school is telling my child it's okay to get in a bathtub with their boyfriend naked. Like, that's not our place. I'm extremely offended by that activity. I get masturbation, but to also subscribe that they should mutually masturbate with each other. Again, they're probably naked and they're touching their own genitalia. And are we sure it's going to end there? And if they're touching their own genitalia and not washing their hands and then holding hands, is it really no risk? Because there's the active involvement of hand to genitalia. So if there's going to be a majority vote on this and it's going to go through, I would like to put forth for consideration that those two activities get taken out respectfully. So.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that, Kelly. In listening to you, it reminds me of why, and bear with me for just a second. It reminds me why the kids going through this discussion, why this activity is so powerful, because kids can ask that, right? Like, well, wait a minute, you said that wasn't, low risk. Well, I think it's high risk because, right? And so the level, like as an educator, the level of discussion, right? And the space, the room that it leaves for, it invites children to be discerning. And to think about the details and weigh it for themselves, right? Without actually being put in the situation, they can think, well, if I were in that situation, what would I want to do? And they get to do that in many different kinds of and practice that decision making internally. Some of them are saying it out loud, right? And so it just reminds me of, right? I hear the discomfort because they're so right in the age group, and also I'm reminded why this helps them build decision-making power. It's like little boundary push-ups and little decision-making workouts that they're doing. Sarah, and then Andrea.
Mine is a question, and I have a kid who just came out of middle school, and to come back to something that Kelly at the very beginning of this risk conversation that really resonated with me, the idea of how uncomfortable these categories made me feel, because they really, really do make me feel uncomfortable. The idea of a couple of 7th graders in a bathtub together makes my mom heart go, oh no, right? But I do know that they were experimenting with all kinds of weird stuff that makes me uncomfortable. But I'm wondering where this bathing together thing is coming from. And so I'm kind of asking, people who are treating kids, who are working with kids, is that a thing, or is that a holdover from being in a hot tub together? Does anyone have a sense of that piece? Because one thing I never heard my kid talk about was kids who wanted to get in bathtubs together. So I don't know how much of a thing that is. Any help?
Family members I hear about. Manny?
So I'm going to just take a shot at this and probably guess that this is looked at as an alternative to engaging in sexual activity. So this way you're still kind of having that intimate moment with somebody, but also theoretically not taking it further. I understand Kelly's worry on this. We're like, the idea of that is not something that we necessarily want to think about. However, I know from when I was a middle school teacher and just hearing my kids talk, if they were just bathing together, I would have been happy to hear about some of those things. They were engaging in a lot worse than that. And so I think maybe if they have that idea of knowing like they can appreciate each other as opposed to like engaging in any type of sexual activity, it could theoretically delay them actually having sex or doing anything like that. At least that's my thought behind the bathing together. And as far as same with the mutual masturbation that you were talking about, Kelly, like I get where you're coming from with the worries on that too. And I don't know. I kind of think I see it as kind of that same aspect of we can enjoy this intimate moment in a way together, but it'll also keep us from potentially taking it further. And you're right. There's nothing that's guaranteed that they're not going to take it further. Absolutely. I completely understand that. But I think if they know about other things and ways that they can express themselves with each other, then they're less likely to take it to the extreme that we're all thinking, if that makes sense. And I'm guessing that's why they were presented that way too, Sarah.
Tanya?
On this specific topic, I also feel like we're not saying by these slides, these are no risk and you should go home and do them. We're just presenting facts. And I think there's different ways to think of it. That do we delay talking about stuff? Hopefully that means they're going to delay doing it. Or do we get out ahead of things and tell them information beforehand so that they are informed as they go forward? And the bathing thing, for me, it almost feels like it might stem from like, can you get pregnant from taking a bath with someone? And here we are dispelling like you cannot get an STI from it, just so you know. That doesn't mean today you should do that, but now you know. Just like with all these other things we're saying, we're giving correct information. And to me, we're not promoting that they do certain things, but we're just simply telling them facts. And then the discussion, as Ashley mentioned, could go further in the classroom of, what are the chances, do you think, that if you took a bath with someone that you really like and you're both naked, would you be able to not go further? And there could be a discussion about that maybe. But I feel like if we're just telling them kind of medical facts, I don't see anything wrong with that. That's my opinion. And then I had a few other things too. I don't know if other people want to keep talking about this a little bit more.
Can I answer one thing? Because then I'd like you to go on for sure. But what you just said, that just because it's mentioned doesn't mean that we're condoning it. And I kind of disagree. I completely understand how this might open up conversation. But I distinctly remember a lesson in 8th grade where it was Rochelle, it was like, I think it was like, which one of these is false or something like that. It was like 3 truths and a false, or 2 truths and a false. And we decided that that was not a good activity because they might only hear the false and never really like have the truth like sink in. Like, I think you're taking a gamble, because somebody might be completely tuned out and be like, dude, my teacher just told me I could bathe with my girlfriend and I'm not going to have any risk. Or, we could totally mutually masturbate and it'd be fine. So I disagree that they're not going to see it as condoning. That's just my personal opinion, but I will completely,
Thank you. Thank you for that. And Tanya, I am going to come back to you, but Rabbi?
Yes. I think the reality is that people discovered sex long before there was sex ed. And I think our students are the same way. And I actually like the idea as to kind of build off of what Manny said, that we give them ideas and an understanding of ways to find and have gratifying, meaningful, pleasurable experiences that are not sexual intercourse. Because I think for some people that might, well, one, that might kind of slow things down as they mature and their relationships mature, but it also gives some things that that not only will be beneficial to people enjoying sexuality, but might be something that is can be a place where they can agree to go rather than jumping all the way right into sex. Although sex in a bathtub is not easy, so I'm not necessarily sure that putting that on the table is going to automatically mean sex. But I think that giving them alternatives, I'm much more comfortable with that. It doesn't feel to me like that is going to lead to sex. I feel like it's not as though we are telling them about the existence of reverse cowgirl. This is something I think that can go very differently.
Ashley, you're on mute.
Yeah, you're muted, Ashley.
Thank you. Someone's got a lot of spaces in their text box now. Thank you, Rabbi, for sharing your perspective on that. Tanya, you had something else you would like to talk about?
Yes, apart from we have the coolest rabbi in all the land here on our committee, but also, let's see. So on slide 3, first, overall, Rochelle, you are so awesome, and this whole thing is so awesome. So I always hate that we just go right to nitpicking and don't mention the 99% that's awesome, but hopefully you know that we love it. So on slide 3, just under the HIV thing, there's an apostrophe on its that shouldn't be there. And I wouldn't want the kids to think that it should be there. And then I think that on slide 3, the discussion that we had, I feel like when it says a disease you can get when you do something sexual, I feel like that is not only broad, but also inaccurate, because it makes it sound like anything sexual you do, you could get an STI, and that's not true, of course. So I do think we should specify like when they do certain sexual activities with that person. So we know that it's certain ones, and then we're going to go into talking about it. That would be my suggestion for that. And then on slide 6, just scrolling down here, and I'm going to beat my same dead horse from last year to everyone's right. So it's the one where, so slide 6, the third bullet, abstinence is the only 100% effective way to prevent sexually transmitted HIV, other sexually transmitted diseases or infections, and pregnancy. And again, I feel like lumping it into one bullet point exaggerates what we're saying, because abstinence, according to our definition, is that you don't do any of the things listed up top. And so I feel like we're in essence saying, if you do anything at the top, or not at the top, at the bottom, if you do any of the bottom things, such as genitals, touch persons, genitals, mouth, or anus, then you can get pregnant. I feel like that's what the third bullet point says. And that's obviously not true. So if we're saying sex is that broad definition, and abstinence from all those are needed in order to prevent pregnancy, I feel like it's an exaggeration. So I feel like the third bullet point should become 2 different bullet points where we keep it the same as far as the STIs and stuff, but then a new bullet point would be abstinence from vaginal sex is the only 100% effective way to prevent pregnancy. Like we're lumping too much into talking about pregnancy when all the other things have to do with STIs, but there's only one thing that has to do with pregnancy. So I feel like I wish we would separate the 2 out. Otherwise, I feel like we're exaggerating and say, if you have oral sex, you can get pregnant. those are my points. Thank you.
Kelly?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you say my name. The only, Tanya, the only thing I wonder, and Sarah could speak to that, I know it's in this lesson, but I think this slide is bigger than this lesson and this like agenda item because it's in every lesson. So I feel like if we're gonna change anything on this slide, I'm wondering if that's something that needs to be like on the agenda to be discussed for all of the lessons, because this is the slide that's like in all of them. So I don't know that it's just easy to say, let's change it here because it's in high school and it's in 8th grade and it's gonna, you know what I mean? So I think it might need to, I'm wondering if it needs to be something that we put on an agenda for the future to so that you can, yeah.
I'm going to jump in. This is this committee with almost everyone different agreed on this definition many moons ago. And so if the title is the school district's definition of abstinence, we just need to keep, Kelly's right, we need to keep all of it. And I do appreciate, Tanya, your commitment to making it more accurate for the kids in every grade level. And that would be something I think we can come to this committee once we've gotten through the curriculum, may be able to come back to.
Okay, I'm just gonna say one last thing about it and then I'll give it up again, but I'm not questioning the definition of abstinence because I know you guys work very hard to make a specific definition of abstinence. I think we're just applying that definition too broadly because the full definition as we have it is correct in terms of STIs, but a more narrow definition of abstinence would be true for pregnancy. And when I see this slide, I feel like we're saying you can get pregnant from oral sex. So I'm not questioning the definition of abstinence. I'm just questioning how we're lumping it with.
No, I completely agree. And that's just something the committee had already together previously.
If I want to keep thinking about this and proposing something for a future agenda, but if so, I have the
So it does sound like a future agenda item to go back and revisit. There's nothing wrong with that. To revisit our definition of abstinence. And I hear what you're saying, Tanya, just it's pulling out that pregnancy piece, right? And having another bullet point that says abstinence is the only 100% way to prevent pregnancy. Remove it, I mean, its own bullet point, right? So it's no longer lumped into that.
If I could jump in, we just need to make sure that we are not now discussing a new agenda item. And talking about what you would like for the change to that definition.
Okay, yeah, I'll drop that and think about it separately and see if it's something to bring up through the proper process some other time. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you everyone. Andrea, yeah?
I'm sorry, I had to step away for something that couldn't be avoided. So I'm back and I wanted to just route back to what we were talking about with those types of activities that are listed as low risk, high risk, no risk. I know that there's this idea sometimes that if we as educators or healthcare providers say something that we're going to give someone an idea of what to do, and often that has been proven to not be the case. And so I want, like from a clinical standpoint, for example, the best, and this is an unrelated topic, but the best analogy I can come up with typically is an uncomfortable topic, say regarding suicide. Clinically, it has been researched and proven that you're not going to put an idea in someone's head by asking them, have you thought about committing suicide? But rather, they're more likely to be honest with you if you present that topic in a very direct way, even though it feels uncomfortable. So oftentimes when we're discussing other health topics from a healthcare provider standpoint, it's best to actually be fairly direct and we're not typically going to put an idea into someone's head by listing that particular activity. So I think from a healthcare standpoint, having these things listed as a topic of discussion, whether or not they believe it to be low risk or high risk. I get your concern as a parent to say, I can't believe that we would think potentially of, giving this idea to a young person, but statistically and clinically, you're likely not going to be giving that idea. They've likely already thought of it themselves. And then the other piece too would be that we're really talking about risk for STDs. We're not necessarily talking about, that'll be a separate lesson, talk about consent or what they want to do with their own body. But when we talk just risk about STDs, I think that, clearly in bathing together, you are really at no risk clinically from getting a STD from one another. And so I totally honor and hear what you're saying, Kelly, about concern. I can tell you from a clinical standpoint that most of the young people in my office who ask questions are at this age group are far beyond asking about bathing together or holding hands. And then those who are maybe not, are not typically going to be influenced by just having a conversation about it or even broaching the topic. So I just wanted to add that in there, and I apologize if I missed some of this. I just, we're all on a different platform and I had to step away.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have new things we want to talk about?
No, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump on that thing with Andrea, because I just had an idea looking at I'm on page 4 of the teacher notes for that same topic. And the teacher is writing on the board, high risk, lower risk, or no risk. And I wonder if it would make sense to have the teacher write, and now it's more writing, and I'm a teacher and that's a pain, but if it would make sense for the teacher to write high STI risk, lower STI risk, no STI risk. So we're not making it broadly, there's no risk at all to any of these things. The person could drown in the bathtub. But if we're really keeping it couched in that this is about STIs.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I'm seeing lots of head nodding. Manny and then Rabbi Benjamin Zober. And then I'm probably going to be asking Luis if we have public comment. Manny?
Okay, so just to, somebody's got some really bad feedback. There we go. Just to kind of address that for you, Sarah, I mean, I don't know if we necessarily need to worry about addressing and saying high risk, low risk STI, because the topic itself is talking about abstinence, contraceptives, and STIs. So I think that I feel like that should be kind of a given, but if it's not, I mean, I'm totally game for them adding that extra to it so that way the kids know what we're talking about. And then also just kind of to touch on what Andrea said, and also kind of what you said also, Kelly, is I think I try to think about who our audience is when we teach some of this stuff. If your kids are coming to you and talking to you about this stuff, Kelly, that's a good thing. And I'm happy that they're willing and able to do that. But I think we also need to make sure, though, that we're getting this information to those kids that aren't willing to talk to their parents or are afraid to. So this way they know other alternatives themselves. And or maybe it gives them the confidence to maybe talk to their parent about something so that this way they can actually have that conversation. Because I mean, I know myself, sex was never something I ever really wanted to talk with my mom about, but other adults that I felt comfortable with, it was something that I'd be more than willing to talk with them about if I knew about some of those things or I had questions. But I mean, I learned a lot of that from the share stuff. And unfortunately, I didn't learn a lot from the share stuff when I went through it myself. So I think it's important that we kind of keep in mind, who is our main audience when it comes to learning about a lot of this material. And I don't think we're necessarily trying to focus on just those kids that are going to be having these conversations with their parents. We got to make sure that we're focusing on those kids that are afraid to talk to their parents also. So this way they are informed so that they're not making that choice that's going to prevent them from having other opportunities in life also.
Thank you, Manny. Rabbi?
Yeah, I wanted to just call 2 other things to attention. I hope I'm not completely short-circuiting this discussion. The first was that on it's page 38, under high risk, it's explaining protection using a latex barrier. And there are people who have latex allergies, and there are non-latex condoms. And, I don't know what percentage that is, but I could absolutely see someone saying, I'm sorry, baby, I can't wear a condom, I'm allergic to latex. It'll be cool. as a way around it, and being able to say, well, here's actually there's a product that's non-latex, so we're okay. I think that would would not be out of line to include that, and just for full information. The other question I had was in the video and in the discussions of the different types of contraception, there's no mention of emergency contraception. And that feels like a kind of glaring omission.
Is it because we're not doing pregnancy in this lesson, Kelly Roper for the record, as opposed, like this is just STIs. So I know one of the videos I watched talk about if something happened out of your control and you find out you were exposed to HIV, there was something you could do. But I don't know that, are you talking about pregnancy emergency? Or
I think he's talking about the next, I think it might be the next lesson that we haven't addressed yet, Rabbi.
Yeah, the order of them is a little, okay. Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that later. Thank you. Luis, do we have any public comment for this item? Which I lost track of now is, what is it?
No public comments.
Thank you. Okay, we've had a lot of really robust discussion, and I would love to, I'm looking for a motion. Or 7 is the case, maybe we've had a lot of details. And we have one more lesson after this, so let's.
I will attempt the motion for us here again.
Thank you, Manny.
Manny Magana, motion that we revisit, is that correct? We revisit this lesson with the suggestions recommended by the share committee, and if good, then we can submit for approval. I'm not too sure how I did that motion. Did I do that one right?
I think you need to be more specific about what revisions you want to send back to Rochelle.
Okay. All right, let me get this a little bit more specific then. I, Manny Magana, motion that we look at this lesson again with the revisions to slides 3, slides 6, and let's see, what's it? Slide 6, or sorry, not slide 6, slide 3, and then also with the revision to the definition for low-risk STDs, that there are other options available aside from a latex barrier. I do believe that encompasses the majority of the changes that we talked about. Yeah.
Can we ask him to clarify before we continue, or does that have to be it for the motion?
I would recommend, sorry, Manny, that you would withdraw that. And when you specify the clarifications on the page, specify what kind of clarifications you want to each page. That way the committee knows, and for the motion and documentation purposes, and for Rochelle too, what specifics you want on each page.
Okay, yeah. All right, so if you give me a second, I can rewrite down this motion. I was trying to keep track of everything and I lost a little track of it.
I'm so sorry. I got kicked off with my internet. Are we moving? Can somebody catch me up? I'm so sorry.
I was trying to
just
move
on this
us forward. Yeah, we have had a couple attempts at a motion that then have needed to be withdrawn so we can clarify in what we're talking about. Yeah.
Are we allowed to, as a committee, together list, like with all of our brains and our memories, list what the things were, and then somebody could make a motion spelling it out, or does he have to come up with it on his own?
I think the discussion is generally the process of coming together with some things that we would like.
So we haven't made a motion yet. So are we still discussing? For example, one of the things, reminder discussions was to maybe put in the high STI risk.
So if you wanted that, you could make that as a motion. Yeah. If
Do we have to make a motion though, or can this just be for discussion and we revisit it?
Yeah, we can have some more discussion. Luis?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
we have a motion and it needs to be withdrawn.
Let's look at it again next meeting. That's what I mean.
We can look at. We could look at it next meeting if we wanted.
Is what Louise just said.
Luis Manny withdrew his motion.
Okay.
Thank you for checking. Thank you. We do not have to have any motions tonight if we don't want. It means we would need to come back and discuss this lesson with whatever else we're trying to move forward on as well.
But can we not just help each other as a group to say, what are the revisions that we talked about? And then somebody can make a motion for that, because it's hard for one person to remember everything.
That's more discussion.
One thing, just putting this out in the discussion universe, I don't know if Manny wants to take specific notes. One thing we discussed was saying, instead of high risk, lower risk, no risk, we would say high STI risk, lower STI risk, no STI risk. That was one thing we discussed.
Okay.
Another thing I remember was everywhere in the document, instead of STD, it will say STI, as Rochelle already reminded herself, but I'm not sure if that needs to be in the motion. Does anyone else remember certain things that we discussed that maybe Manny is trying to list?
Certain sexual behaviors instead of some sexual behavior or something on slide 3, maybe?
Slide 3, certain sexual behaviors instead of some.
All right.
Something about the scabies issue. I'm not sure. I could go a lot of different ways with that, but it needs to be addressed.
I think you guys said you wanted to remove it, the scabies from the activity, right?
I've got a little list here, so if you need help, Manny.
I do. If you could tell it to me, I'm trying to write it all down so I can make it.
I can always try it too. We can always try it.
So what I got so far is we want to rename it high STI risk, low STI risk, no STI risk. On slide 3, we want to reword it so that it says certain sexual activities and not some sexual activities. And then I do believe we also said that we wanted to remove the scabies, I thought. I don't know for sure if we had agreed on that.
I had mentioned maybe just removing scabies from the worksheets, but then also I think Lydia to potentially add something like a little disclosure statement after the video that mentions that scabies is most often and typically transmitted in other ways that are not sexual contact.
Okay, so mention scabies, non-sexual contact. Okay, was there anything else that we missed? Because I think I have it all down now so I can actually make the motion for us.
There was the it's with an apostrophe on slide 3. I don't know if that needs to go in a motion or if it's just a typo thing.
Do we need to make a motion for context?
We don't need to put it in the motion.
Okay. The inclusion of non-latex contraception.
Okay, inclusion of non-latex contraception. And that was to replace on when they talked about the low risk, correct? Okay. Non-latex and low risk. Okay, I do believe I have everything. All right, I am ready to try this motion round 2. Here we go. I, Manny Magana, motion that we move forward with this curriculum with the following changes. We change...
Manny, sorry, just stopping you. Do you want it to go to the board for approval, or do you want it to go to Rochelle to edit and then it comes back to you and you guys rediscuss? Because if you went to the board and made these changes, those changes would be made to the board. So they would be reflected in there.
Thank you for correcting me on that. These are to be made to Rochelle, so then we can quickly review those changes to make sure we're all comfortable with it. Okay, all right, so let me rephrase that. I motion to send back to Rochelle for the following changes so that we may review. We have high STI risk, low STI risk, no STI risk, instead of simple high risk, low risk, and no risk. On slide 3, we remove the phrase where it says do something sexual, and we we instead replace that with certain sexual activities with that person. We remove scabies from the worksheets. However, we also want to make sure that we mention that scabies can be spread through non-sexual contact. And we also want to add on, when it talks about low risk activities for STDs, that we add the inclusion of non-latex condoms also. I think I got it all.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it, Tanya Hayes.
Thank you, Tanya. Yes. And Kelly?
This is just for the record, so that I just would like it on the record, even though I have a sneaking suspicion you're going to deny me. I would like to propose a friendly amendment that we remove bathing together and we remove mutual masturbation.
Thank you
from no risk behaviors.
Thank you, Kelly. Manny?
I need to,
accept that, Manny, or do you not accept it and keep your motion as it is?
I would, I'd like to not accept that and keep the motion as it is.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly, for offering.
Can I just
Andrea?
clarify, as a friendly amendment, did you also include removing scabies from the worksheets and a disclosure after the scabies video?
Yes, I did.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay, and Sarah?
Did you include changing STD to STI?
I do believe that was a typo. Do we have to include that in the motion?
I don't know.
I think you did say it anyway, but.
If not, you could propose that friendly amendment that we make sure.
Could I propose, Sarah Kaji, would like to propose a friendly amendment that STD be amended to STI throughout the lesson.
I second that amendment.
You accept that friendly amendment. And Tanya, do you also accept that friendly amendment?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And so I also have a friendly amendment. You had stipulated this would go to Rochelle and come back to us. And I would you be open to just sending these changes to the board so this lesson can be updated?
If everybody else, yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay, Tanya?
Yes, I am as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that was a lot. Sarah, are we good?
Yes, I just want to make sure, Luis, you have all that recording, and Rochelle, you're good too before the motion is voted on.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and those opposed? Kelly, thank you. So on, oh my word. So on motion from Manny and second from Tanya with friendly amendments from Andrea, Sarah, and myself. Right? Okay, motion passes. How many? Do we have 8 still, or did our 9th come?
7. We have 7.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. 7-1.
Oh, sorry, Kelly. We have 8 people here. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to change any votes. I was just like, no, there's a total of 8. Okay.
Yeah, 8 here. Yep. And so Kelly knew. She's like, we're going to what's the vote? 7-1. Thank you, everyone. Whew. Okay. Can I ask our folks running this, do you need a break before we do our last lesson, Rochelle?
You know what? It's totally up to you guys.
We do need a
5-minute potty break.
Let's do a 5-minute break. So I have 7:35 right now, and so you may mute yourself and turn your camera off, please. And we'll be back at 7:40.
Oh no, we changed positions. How confusing.
I vote that I don't do the next motion. That was way too difficult.
You know what, Manny? I don't remember when it was, but I stumbled over the worst motion. I don't remember when it was, but it was brutal. And I had to withdraw it too.
I mean, I've gotten 2 withdrawals in one committee meeting just because I can't word it right so far. Is that a record? I mean, I'm not trying to break it, but you know.
You're setting new ones.
Hey, I'm a record setter, you know.
No pain, no gain.
Exactly.
All right.
Good time. Oh, wow.
You all are prompt. Well done.
Thank you for the break.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So the birthday dinner tonight is orange chicken.
Oh,
he
yeah.
turns 9 and he wants orange chicken. That's been his favorite meal since he was 3.
If it were a Costco orange chicken, I'd say you get a win. If you have to make it, I don't know.
No. The answer to that, no, it's the Costco one. Yeah.
My kids are Trader Joe's orange chicken for everything.
Right.
My guy's all about applesauce, so I mean, I don't quite know about that orange chicken life yet.
Oh, wait until you get there. It's so fun. And then they do something like, never mind, I don't like anything but cucumbers for 3 weeks.
That's true. Noodles. We lived on noodles. She still does, and she's going to be 20 this month. So.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
I'm hoping it's pickles. That way I can at least join them.
Wonderful.
Are we ready?
I am ready. If we are ready, are all our folks back? I haven't heard from Jonna.
I think we're back on live. Yes, right?
Yes. Excellent.
Yep, we're good, guys.
Okay, thank you, John.
Okay.
Wonderful. So we've really blasted through everything and we've had some really excellent discussion. So thank you, everyone. So moving on to 2.06 is our final heavy lift of the night. Presentation and discussion of the proposed share 7th grade curriculum to include lesson plans accompanying PowerPoint, presentation materials, and draft lesson plan. It's as attachment A on this agenda and the accompanying videos. Michelle?
I'm going to share my screen again. And the same thing goes, I'm just going to run through the lesson with you all, and then we can have discussion. There we go. Okay, so lesson topic, reproduction and sexual health. Objectives, review the main parts of the male and female reproductive systems and how they work. Describe the process of human reproduction by identifying the correct order of the steps involved with conception. Define sexual intercourse. Activities, sex education for middle school, body basics. Reproduction basics, 28-day cycle activity. Another video, human journey in the womb. And then this is just lesson prep for the teacher. Place the following 3 phrases, on 3 pieces of chart paper around the room so that students cannot see what's written on them until you're ready to do the activity. So sexual intercourse is when, a pregnancy can start when, a pregnancy can't start when. Print out a set of 28-day cards. Of course, it's at the end of this lesson in this packet. Cut in half. 2 bouncy balls or items to represent the ovum. And then the lesson intro is the same one that I read before, so I'm going to skip over it for honor our time. So starting off with the sex education for middle school body basics, reviewing biological male and female reproductive systems and how they work. And then going into slide 3, what do you think you know? So we're, probing them. Sexual intercourse is when, a pregnancy can start when, a pregnancy can't start when. So the following activity can be completed whole class as pairs, whatever meets the needs of your students. Step 1, today we're going to discuss human reproduction. Some of you might know a lot about this and some of you might be learning about it for the first time. Let's start by seeing what the class already knows about the topic of reproduction. Point out that the 3 pieces of paper you have hung around the room, point to them. Explain to students that each piece of newsprint has a different sentence starter. They're there to walk around and write down the first thing that comes to mind for each page. Explain that you are just looking to see what students have heard about these topics and that you expect all of their responses to be appropriate for school. Distribute the flip chart markers and tell them to be sure to write small enough to allow others to contribute. Invite students to stand and move around. Once done, have them return to their seats. Ask 3 students to help by each bringing 1 piece of newsprint to post at the front of the room so the whole class can see. Moving on to step 2, review what students wrote on the charts. Oh, sorry, my cat's coming. Cat just helped across my keyboard. Step 2, review what students wrote on the charts. If a chart does not have any responses or misconceptions need clarification, make sure to clarify. So an example might be vaginal sex, sometimes called sexual intercourse, is when an erect penis is inserted into a lubricated vagina. If this results in ejaculation and a condom is not used, semen is released from the penis into the vagina. Semen contains hundreds of millions of sperm, so if an egg is present, a sperm and that egg can unite. That's called fertilization. The fertilized egg then keeps going, and if it implants into the wall of the uterus, a pregnancy has begun. If it doesn't, that person would eventually have a menstrual period. So for further support, age-appropriate definitions are included at the end of the lesson to support the teachers and with their discussion to make sure we're kind of all speaking the same language. General definitions for key terms related to human reproduction have been discussed, and now move on to the steps of human reproduction from start to finish. Review each phase of the menstrual cycle. So slides 4 through 11. Now that you have some general definitions of key terms related to human reproduction, I want to make sure you understand the steps involved from start to finish. So location of the reproductive system. Female's uterus is located in the abdominal cavity, but it is not the same thing or close to the stomach. And then 28 days, average menstrual cycle. Average menstrual cycle is about 28 days, but varies widely between individuals. It's quite common to be irregular for the first few years of menstruation, and menstrual periods usually begin between the ages of 9 and 15. And then going through an ovum, an egg is released from the ovary into the fallopian tube on a monthly basis. If the ovum unites with the sperm and implants in the uterus, a pregnancy can begin, known as fertilization. If the egg does not unite with the sperm, within 24 to 48 hours, it will dissolve and be reabsorbed by the body. To prepare for a potential pregnancy, each month the uterus grows a thick lining to create a good environment for the potential fetus. That is what a baby is called before it's born. Let's see, sorry. If the egg and sperm do not unite, hormones signal the uterus to prepare to shed the lining, causing someone to menstruate or have a period. Menstruation or having a period is when the uterus rids itself of the lining because there was no fertilized egg. And then reproduction basics, a 28-day cycle activity. There's 28 cards at the end of this lesson. Pass 1 card to each student. If more students than cards, have them share. Once passed out, have students taped to the wall beginning with day 1. Now we can see an average 28-day menstrual cycle with day 1 being the first day of the period. Next, I'd like to show you when a person is most likely to become pregnant if sperm and egg unite. Each of these 2 bouncy balls will represent 1 day when the egg is in the fallopian tube and able to unite with the sperm. So you're using 2 volunteers to hold the bouncy balls. Have one student stand under day 14 and the other stand under day 15. Now, now, whenever the egg is traveling through the fallopian tube, pregnancy can happen. If there are sperm present, remember from the PowerPoint that the egg or ovum is only alive for about 2 days. So these 2 bouncy balls will represent when the egg is traveling and able to unite with the sperm. Ask for 5 more volunteers and give them a copy of the sperm page, which is also part of this lesson. Sperm can live inside another person's body for up to 5 days. So let's see what happens if there is sperm in the uterus during different points of the menstrual cycle. Have each student with a sperm page stand under days 24 through 28. You can see the sperm in the body during this time is not likely to start a pregnancy because it's less likely there is an egg around. Important to reiterate throughout the activity that all individuals are different and that pregnancy can occur at different times for different people. Abstinence is the only 100% effective way to avoid unplanned pregnancy. And for those who are choosing to engage in sexual intercourse, it's imperative condoms be used to reduce the risk of unplanned pregnancy and transmission of sexually transmitted infections. So have the people holding the 5 sperm pages move to stand under days 11 through 15. You can see now how if the sperm is present either before or during the same time when the egg, the bouncy balls in our case, are present, that it's time when a pregnancy is most likely to happen. So have 1 more volunteer hold up the birth control page, have them stand between the students holding the bouncy balls and the students with the sperm to physically block the 2 from meeting. Ask, what is the birth control doing? Clarify any lingering misconceptions. And since this is just a typical menstrual cycle and we know that everyone is unique, if someone chooses to have vaginal sex but does not want to become pregnant, get their partner pregnant, it's most effective to either postpone vaginal sex, practice abstinence, or to use an effective form of birth control consistently and correctly. And then closing for this is the video, The Human Journey in the Womb. And here are the key terms that were referenced earlier. And the sperm page and the 28-day cycle are at the end. So I'm going to stop sharing. And okay, up for discussion. I feel like that went so fast.
It did, thank you. Got some thumbs up. Okay. Andrea, and then
I just
Kelly.
wanted to mention really quick, I think Rabbi, you had a comment that may have been for this lesson plan, if you wanted to say it now about emergency contraception, just so that you don't forget.
Go ahead, Rabbi.
Yeah, I just that, you know, in discussions of contraception that are not effective against STDs, I think it's fair to also mention emergency contraception, just in the name of being comprehensive as to all of the options that exist.
Okay.
Thank you. Kelly?
I knew we're not talking about any I maybe totally spaced it. But there isn't a place, I agree. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there, but there's not currently a place where we're talking about female condoms or male condoms or contraception here. Or did I completely zone out thinking about something else? Is that slide completely missing from prevention? Like, it doesn't seem like there's a slide for that at all. Or am I wrong?
Kelly, and to the rest of the committee, I should have this on the top of my tongue as far as, and I have to be honest, it's been a while since I watched the movie that goes along with this lesson. And I, for some reason, had it in my head that it was in that movie, and I can be totally wrong and had it tied to something else. So I apologize profusely for not recalling every topic that was in our videos this evening. I watch and watch and watch and watch. And then they just kind of, yeah. So sorry. I'm trying to think, Rabbi, for some reason it was mentioned in this video, but it could have been in a different one. And I could be, so that is completely my fault.
I had the same. I remember watching one of the videos at some point in preparation and having that thought and did not have the sense to write down under the notes for which specific lesson it was.
Okay. So I have that with a question mark next to my movie.
Well, and there was definitely a point where I believe it talked about the ring and like something that could be like, used for years, 5 to 10 years. I definitely, you're right. It's in the video for sure. It's probably in this high school video. But I think if we're going to have emergency contraceptive on a slide, then there should be a slide that recaps it all, maybe.
Or just, I remember seeing it in the birth control video, I think, but you could also, when you're doing that activity, Rochelle, and they have the different cards and you have birth control in there and you're reminding them about condoms and whatever, and how the birth control disrupts the egg and the sperm or how the birth control prevents a pregnancy from occurring. You could talk about emergency contraception right there really quick, that these are barrier methods, right? These prohibit that egg from ever being released. And then here's this one that's going to disrupt the implantation process. And
so almost like I do believe we have it in 8th grade, right? We had the different options. I mean, I could quickly go back through and have that. I think it's valuable to have a slide and that discussion too, Lydia, like you're saying, because there's a piece that it's not just this, right? Like it's just not a condom. It's, I mean, to review again, or to, to make sure that we're hitting home that different contraception, right? Can also, okay.
Okay. Any other discussion beyond the possible addition of that slide, Kelly? You're muted.
Okay, sorry. On lesson, after the movie, what do you think sexual intercourse is when it's not, those three conversation topics. And I know every teacher can do things differently, but what I like about that activity is I like that it's asking people to think about, and I would love to read your words exactly, but okay. Let's start by seeing what the class already knows. And you're kind of asking them for like an immediate, like right then and there in your brain, what are you thinking is this? And I think sometimes the initial thought is lost if you show all three at the same time, and then they have to split ways and crowd and see what they could write down, because then they have time to think. And also in COVID world, then they're crowding up the board. And so maybe I was thinking like if they get like 3 Post-its, and so like the teacher can turn around the thing and say, like sexual intercourse is when. Write it down on your Post-it on your desk. Nobody needs to go anywhere yet. A pregnancy can start when. Write it down, first thought that you have. A pregnancy can't start when. And so then they immediately like are forced to think about one thing at a time, and then they can move around and do whatever they need to do to put their answer on the piece of paper, but it forces them to not think about it. Or look at what their neighbor said and copy it. Just an idea.
That's a good idea. And Kelly, it's so, I mean, I've had these lessons done since before we, went away on lockdown. So, you know, I mean, honestly, I didn't even think about having to address that, and what the movement within the classroom is so different now with groupings and non-groupings of kids and what that could look like. I mean, you know, for our kids are, and what they have available at school now too, we could use technology in there too, as far as collecting information and posting it on the active board, right? So, I mean, we can be super creative with that and leave, you know, some of that up to teacher discretion as far as how they're going to, but, you know, give them ideas like you just said, because yeah, we've never had to deal with that before. It's always been, we have a big group of kids and we can move them around, and now we can't be moving big groups of kids together. So thank you for bringing that point up.
Thinking, Kelly. Andrea?
And Kelly, I think that is a really great option too, especially like you're getting their initial reaction rather than, you know, having to really think about it, you know, which friend is going to go to which thing. So I think that's really great. So I had a couple of suggestions that maybe we have some opportunities to include. So my first would be on the slide where we're discussing the 28 days average menstrual cycle. Okay. I like that we put that this is the average. It also varies widely between individuals. I would potentially add like a comma there and just say, you know, normal can be anywhere from 21 to 35 days. Okay. We may also have an opportunity from a healthcare standpoint to say, you know, after it's quite common to be irregular for the first few years, to put a new sentence that menstrual cycles can be affected by stress, diet, genetics, etc., so that people know that there are different things that can be influencing their cycle. I also think this is a good opportunity to be able to put something in there that if you are concerned, that you can see a healthcare provider, and a little disclosure potentially even that says you do not have to have a physical exam to discuss your concerns with a healthcare provider. I think that is one of the biggest barriers. Young people will not come to me, especially those who identify as female, because they're terrified to have a pap smear. And we don't have to go into on these slides, you know, what those guidelines are or anything. But the first thing I do when I meet a young person, especially a female, I say, I'm not going to touch you. Right. And that just like washes away because they're just terrified to even come and ask us questions because they think they're going to have a pap smear or a vaginal exam. And that's typically not the case for most of their complaints or concerns. So, and I could help give like a little bit of language for that, but I think we have an opportunity on that slide to kind of give them that resource. But I think that that could be a potential opportunity on that particular slide. And then my only other disclosure that I think could be helpful, and I would be open to wherever this could be placed, you know, potentially even as you start to discuss like the location of the reproductive system for a female, is to discuss, and maybe people have some opportunity to tell me what they think of why this is an important topic for all genders to hear about. So I think sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, young people will be like, you know, maybe someone who identifies as a boy, why do I need to know about the female menstrual cycle? So maybe some kind of disclosure or discussion even on why this is important for everyone to know how bodies are working, whether you identify as female or male, so that we don't find that maybe there might be one person who's checking out, but maybe we'll get them to check back in. So I don't know, maybe people have some other some suggestions, but I do think that that might be an important thing to address so that, you know, clinically we know why this is an important topic for everybody, no matter how you identify. So those would be my only 2 cents.
Thank you.
I have a question for Andrea. Andrea, I feel like either it had to have been 8th grade since that's when you joined us. Wasn't there a point of conversation where we put something in a slide where it was like you could not have a period and still get pregnant? Like for some reason that's in my brain that you were wanting to make a point on a slide about something like that. Can you maybe explain that?
Yes, I do believe you have a great memory, even in 2020. I'm very impressed, Kelly. So yes, you can, because, and if we look at the cycle, because you ovulate before you actually have a menstruation or bleed. And so that's how you can get pregnant if you've never had a period, because if there happens to be semen in your uterus or fallopian tube and you ovulate before you've ever had your first physical menstrual period, so is it possible? Absolutely. And you know, it could be something that you even mentioned when you're, you know, a question you pose, like, can you get pregnant before you ever have a period? And when you look at that cycle, that's where you can really show that that is possible. It's more common for, say, women who get pregnant after they have just recently had a baby, right? So maybe they're breastfeeding and they're not having regular periods, because nothing's regular after a pregnancy. And they will sometimes and often actually get pregnant before they ever even have a menstrual period, because you ovulate an egg before you menstruate, right? Because you only menstruate if a sperm and egg don't meet an implant. So they could just be little nuances we could put in there as we're sort of tying these things in. That's a great question to pose when they look at this cycle. And I really love the activity of like a visualization for young people. I mean, honestly, most adults could do this activity to show how it's possible so that you can make a more informed decision. But yes, I think that's a good option to put in there.
Thank you for asking that, and thank you for clarifying. So we have a couple clarifications possibly to propose, and do we have any other thoughts on this or things we'd like to move forward with?
Wow.
It's a beautiful lesson. Another beautiful lesson. Well done, Rochelle. Okay.
I'll just quickly,
yes, Manny?
I was just going to say, I'm just going to quickly summarize what I've heard from everybody here so far.
Great.
Can I jump in and make sure there's no public comment?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Please do so.
Luis?
No public comment.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Sarah.
Manny, I've been keeping some pretty good notes, so we don't have to put some pressure on you. I would be happy to help this time around since you've been doing so good.
Awesome. So I'll quickly just summarize, and then you can tell me if you got kind of the same thing, and anybody else can add whatever else they think. We want to take the idea of what Kelly said and kind of add maybe in the notes on slide 3 to let them know that they could either maybe use Post-it notes, a whiteboard, maybe make a Kahoot for it or something to help answer those 3 questions. We also discussed adding some language to slide 5 on the first point, saying that a normal period is anywhere between 21 to 35 days, and then adding some additional language on there about how your period can be affected by stress, diet, etc. And then I think I was looking at this at the very end after we're done with the lesson before the closing video. You could insert another slide that addresses how you can get pregnant before a period, emergency contraception, and then maybe another slide also explaining why it's important that everybody knows about this. I had that kind of at the very end before they watched the video Human Journey in the Womb. I had that slide kind of put in right before that. Does that sound about right?
Lots of nodding, yes. They're all like,
Andrea had also talked about if you are, the whole point of if you're concerned.
Oh, yes, sorry.
The healthcare provider and you do not need an exam.
Okay.
So is this all, Andrea, are you picturing that slide 5 with the 28 days average menstrual cycle? Would we maybe need 2 slides to address all those things instead of squishing it all on one, because we're adding things, quite a bit of things there?
I think that would be fair, yeah. I would say that maybe, you know, addressing on its own separate slide, if you have concerns about your cycle or questions, you can see a healthcare provider, and also another bullet point, you do not have to have a physical or vaginal examination to discuss your healthcare concerns.
I have a clarifying question for y'all. So on that slide, would you prefer that I got rid of the 28 days at the top and just keep the title average menstrual cycle? Because then we're talking about, you know, it could be 21 to 35 days. So I'm just asking you, because that's an easy fix. And okay.
Manny, from your notes, I don't know if I didn't hear it, but when you were clarifying about the emergency contraceptive, we are also talking about Rochelle looking at what she did for 8th grade with all contraceptive and kind of maybe putting that entire slide there, not just emergency.
Okay, yeah, okay, so I was writing down and I missed that part. So insert the slide from 8th grade, you're saying?
Well,
That's a great suggestion.
I think, or have Rochelle look at, I look at the slide that she used for 8th grade in regard to contraceptive.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'd be down with that idea.
I like that it's consistent.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tanya, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, before we get into the motion, let's do our full discussion. So maybe we can have just one motion, and like that everyone's careful now and taking notes. It seems to me like we're doing kind of a lot of stuff, adding slides and stuff. So maybe this would be a candidate to come back truly rather than go straight to the board. I don't know how people feel. I guess, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that or not, but that's just a suggestion that this one seems more like we're doing major revision than the previous one.
I agree. And there's the caveat in a motion. I believe, Sarah, you'll have to remind us, but it says that when the lesson comes back, we're only allowed to talk about the revisions we've asked for, right?
Correct. As long as that's part of the motion.
We've done that before specifically, where if we make specific things, and we can just that way to be proposed at a future meeting and review only the changes that have been made. And it's worked fairly well, I think. Really.
I think that'd be a great way for us to go about it, is whatever changes we have, just review those and that's it. Because it seems like we all agree in general that everything else about this lesson is pretty awesome. Well done, Rochelle. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got our comprehensive list. And Luis, is there any public comment on 2.06, I think?
No, not at this time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm ready for a motion unless there's further discussion.
I'd be willing to make a motion, you guys.
Do it.
Make it happen.
PM. Okay, let me just. All right, so where are we at here? Andrew Thompson, make a motion that we propose sending back for revision the 7th grade curriculum presented today on the draft lesson reproduction and sexual health, with the following revisions, which Rochelle would make, and then we would specifically then review at a future date to only review the revisions that have been made. So the following revisions on an additional slide that covers basic contraceptive methods to include emergency contraception, similar to that of the 8th grade curriculum, which has already been approved at a recent meeting. On slide, which covers the 28-day cycle for menstruation, to remove the 28 days and just keep the average menstrual cycle at the top of the slide. To include on the second bullet point that the average menstrual cycle may be anywhere between 21 to 35 days. And then to add an additional bullet point that menstrual cycles may be affected by stress, diet, genetics, etc. And then to have an additional slide which states that anyone who has concerns regarding their menstrual cycle or reproductive health may contact or see a healthcare provider. And also an additional bullet point which has a disclosure that you do not need to have a vaginal exam or a physical exam to discuss your concerns or complaints with a healthcare provider. Additional revision would be on the think of what you know activity, to allow an option for students to have sticky notes, which will then, or post-it notes, whatever you call them, to capture their initial thoughts and then be able to put those on the specific papers as outlined by Kelly in the activity. And also a disclosure prior to the location of the female reproductive system to propose the question of why this is an important topic for all genders, no matter how you identify, for discussion. with your students. That's my motion.
And if I could clarify, since you were all just discussing this, would then she bring them back for the board to, or the committee to just consider the revisions?
Yes. Yes. So as I said, stated to consider these revisions, to then come back to the committee for review, where we will only discuss the revisions that have been made by Rochelle to then be considered to move forward to the board.
All right, well done. Do we have a second?
I, Sarah Kaiser, second that motion.
Okay. Sorry, Kelly. Okay. So
I'd like to add a friendly amendment to that.
Okay, Manny, you got it.
A friendly amendment to also have a slide inserted at the, or as part of the slide that's inserted at the end, to also address how you can get pregnant before a period. And then also to, I don't know if you had said it, but to explain to everybody, open for discussion, why this was important to discuss this and have everybody understand it. And then on the last friendly amendment is to allow the teacher to decide what is available to them to help the students answer the questions on slide 3.
Thank you. Luis?
Sorry, may I interrupt? Was there a second? I didn't hear a second.
There was second by Sarah.
Aye, Sarah Kaiser seconded.
And then who was the motion by?
Andrea Thompson.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank
Louise. Manny, I did mention already the gender topic of why this is important, and I accept your other friendly amendments to add the additional slide that you mentioned, and also to allow for the teacher to make the best decision about how to do the activity. And if Sarah, do you accept that too?
I, Sarah Kaiser, also accept those friendly amendments.
Thank you.
Just to make sure that we're all legal, I guess we are allowed to do that, right, Sarah? Just accept the 2 parts of that amendment, or do I need to re-propose the amendment?
So what I heard was Andrea accepted the first part, and then the second part she's not accepting because she had already stated it as part of her motion.
Okay, yeah,
And the third part she also accepted. There were 3 parts, right?
Yes.
Yes. I accept the first part. The second part, I do not, because I've already included it. And then the third part of your friendly amendment, I accept.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Sarah?
I accept all those same things.
Excellent. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And so on motion by Andrea Thompson, seconded by Sarah Kaiser, and with the friendly amendment from Manny Magana, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Very well done. Okay, and we've had no public comment the whole time. Okay, looking at item 3.01, Luis, is there any public comment for the end of our meeting tonight?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And if I could just put on the record too, that the public was invited to comment prior to this meeting, but there were no public comments prior to the meeting.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so our 3.02 announcement of the next meeting is Monday, November 9th, 2020. Details to follow. I think our plan is to stay on Zoom.
Yes.
Good, thank you. Okay, and so at 8:18 p.m., our meeting is adjourned. Well done, everyone.
Nice job, guys.
Good work.